Hi, my name is Charles Sterling. I'm a senior program manager on the Visual Studio team. I focus on application lifecycle management tools. One thing that you're going to hear more and more often is the word DevOps. And a common theme or a common thread that you're going to hear in DevOps is compressing release times down from months to weeks, in many cases to days and hours, which begs the questions, what happened to testers when they only have hours between release? Do they go away? Obviously not, otherwise we wouldn't have this session. This presentation, we're going to take a look at the introduction of how testers do fit into that very compressed world, and then lots and lots of demos to show you the tools that we've actually released and enhanced for enabling those workflows. Okay, so let's go back to testers. So historically, testers have been used or misused as organic playback machines, going out and finding engineering faults. Now, if they only have an hour or a day to look at a release, that's probably not the best use of their time, and hopefully those sort of problems actually have been caught well upstream. So freeing the testers themselves to going out and being the proxies or the advocates of customers, something that they've always been, but hopefully is actually going to become more important for them in this brave new world, is actually just going out and putting on the lens of the customer itself. Now, as they do go out and make that change, their tools need to change as well. Three things right off the bat come to mind is the fact that the tools need to be much, much faster to get up and get going. The second one is the tools need to integrate with the development team. They can't go out and use siloed tools. They need to go out and reuse the same product backlog items and work items, user stories, that the development team is making sure that they are actually focused on the same effort. And then finally, enabling testing and production. Being able to look at a live release without installing software or tainting it is really critically important. So let's go ahead and get into the first set of demos that are going to show you how we're going to enable testers to become customer advocates and test in production. Here I am looking at my Visual Studio Online team project that my development team has been working on for a little while. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the project they've been working on. And you'll see that there is a test hub. Opening up the test hub, I can go ahead and take a look at the exact same work and be in the same environment that they've been working in or they are working in. Now, one of the first features or new enhancements I want to talk about is the fact that test suites and test plans are now work items. So I could go ahead and open up my test plan, and you'll see that, in Visual Studio Online, it gives me all the information I need. But now that it's a work item with Team Foundation Server, I can modify that work item and customize it. Opening up this test plan, you can see I've added project info, test phase, clone snapshot, billing ID, and a set of reviewers. Again, this was enabled by the fact that this is now a work item. Additionally, as you would expect being a work item, anytime I make a change, it is automatically tracked and audited. And that's what we're displaying here. For the second demo, I wanted to show you how to do Excel integration in creating test cases. Going back into my Visual Studio Online account, I'm going to go ahead and start off with a brand new static suite. So we're going to call this one, let's call it ZZ Connect. And the reason for the ZZ is that way it throws it at the bottom, hopefully, and I can easily find it. So there's my ZZ Connect. And inside of ZZ Connect, I'm going to go ahead and add a set of test cases using Excel. So let's go ahead and in my grid, open up Excel. Do I have Excel open? I do. Open up some test cases I've already created there and paste these in directly. At this point, all I have to do is save them, and you'll see that these are now test cases directly from Excel. Going back into the test view, here they are. Now, taking a look at and digging into one of these test cases, you'll see that I've got this enter name. It would probably make more sense rather than actually putting the word name or actually putting this in this step. I could go out and say enter Bob, make it a parameter itself. So let's go ahead and make name a parameter. And you'll see that now I have it as a parameter, and I could type in Bob, and I could actually have Ted. Probably want password the same. Now, one of the other new enhancements that we've done is actually enabling you to share these parameters across multiple test cases directly from Visual Studio Online. So converting this to shared parameters, I can go out and call it ZZ Connect. Let's go ahead and save and close this. Go back into my parameters hub. And here's our ZZ Connect that we just created. And what we want to do is, from Excel, grab a set of parameters that you'd already have created or had stashed away somewhere. Pasting this in. Now when I run this test, it's going to ask me to walk through all of these iterations, and I can share this across both of these test cases. Let's go ahead and actually bind the other one to that same parameter list. So going out and changing name and password. And I think actually the same password is in here twice. There it is. Again, very easily using Excel and sharing the resources across test cases is going to be a huge productivity boon. Let's go ahead and save and close this and walk into our next demo. Our next demo is to show you how to display and share test results with your team. And we have three ways of doing this: through graphs, through exporting a test case review, and looking at a brand new test case pane. So let's go ahead and show you how to get into the results pane. So right off the bat, you'll see that there is a pane option right here, and I can take a look at test results, test case, test suites, or the results is the one we're interested in. But suites is kind of interesting. Is for this particular test, which is login with user ID and password, it belongs and is being used by these different suites. If I want to know how are we doing, I would take a look at the test results. And you'll see here that it looks like doing all right. Our IE stuff is a little bit ahead of the Chrome and the Firefox. I got some blocked test cases. But again, I can very, very easily see right from Visual Studio Online, how are we actually doing as far as our test. Now, I also mentioned the fact that I wanted to do graphs that I actually pin to the home page so everybody on the team project can see how we're doing. Let me go ahead and let's do a new static suite, and we'll call this one phishing. And underneath of my phishing static suite, I'm going to add all of the requirements we're taking a look at. So here's all of my requirements. I'm going to add all of those. And the reason being is I want to have some interesting data for my graphs to display. And underneath of phishing, once we add it, there's got to be a requirement that actually has some interesting test cases underneath of it. So here we go. And again, this is another example of taking a look at and integrating back with the same work that my development team is using. So let's go through these and find one that has a bunch of test cases. Right, here's one that has 27. Let's go ahead and look at this one and go to charts. Adding a new chart. Probably the first thing that we're going to want to be is I'm big on scorecards. How are we doing on a scorecard? A quick glance should show you that. For my rows, I want to take a look at assigned to, and for the columns, I want to see what priority my people are working on. So you can see that I'm actually carrying the most load, and having 9 work items assigned to me and then my test efforts is okay. I'm clearly not in bug jail. Hopefully Aaron can pick up his work. Dima and Darshan, looks like they're not doing a whole lot, but you get the idea that you can see not only what are we working on, how high a priority it is. Another graph that I love taking a look at, and I look at all the time, is taking a look at these stacked area just by priority. If I'm picking up a lot of extra work at the end of the my iteration, be it a sprint or whatever, it kind of says that you're in trouble. In this case, it's still not a great story. While I'm not picking up a lot of new work, it is much, much higher in priority. So that says that we're missing things that are fairly high in priority for my stakeholders back earlier in the cycle. Now, of course, I don't know the rest of my development team is going to be in the test hub, so I want to pin both of these to my home page. Taking a look at the Visual Studio home page, I should see my pivot chart with how are people doing, my scorecard or my leaderboard, and also how are we progressing with our testing efforts. And it looks like I also have my run rates here. This must have been something I just did a couple minutes ago, or somebody else did while I was on the screen. Taking a look at right now, the last efforts have either not been run or they've all been failures. So again, whoever added that graph did a great job of displaying this is the data that we should be looking at. So in summary, there are a couple new ways of taking a look at the status of your testing efforts. The pane itself, where I can see my test results, the graphs from the home page, and finally, I can go ahead and export a suite or even the entire test plan. So if I want to take a look at the entire test plan, I could export this, and let's email that. Sending email from this online TFS instance hasn't been enabled. So I'll use the online because I know that those are always enabled by default. And let's go out and find the phishing suite, export that, and email that to myself. But before I email it to myself, let's walk through what's being generated, what's being created. Again, this is a test case review. It's going to have all the information for that test case as far as what steps and what suites does it belong to. Probably should have chosen a smaller suite, and I'm really glad I didn't choose the test plan at this point. All right, it looks like I chose one that was just a little bit too large. Let's go ahead and hit escape. And again, getting back into what I was saying is I can actually go ahead and do this from all the way from the plan to individual suites. So let's go ahead and choose a suite that's much, much smaller. And we're going to go ahead and choose email. And hopefully this one's a little bit faster. Yeah, it is. And you can see that the static suite tax module ID has all of these requirement-based suites in it. So it gives me an idea of what's in that suite itself as far as additional suites. And in this case, it's mostly requirements. And what are the steps? Not a lot of steps here. Oh, here's a step. Had I had my exploratory test chosen, I would have actually seen some of those screenshots that we're taking earlier. But again, it gives my stakeholders a clear indication of what it is that we're going to be testing before I even start. So that way they can go out and say, you've missed this on this particular sprint. A great way of actually going out and giving status as to what we're looking at and what we're retesting. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the demos as much as I enjoyed giving them to you. On this slide, I have lots and lots of resources for you to get started. If you can only look at one, or if you want actually the assets that I used today, on the Visual Studio ALM blog, I've got all of these steps already listed out, including that Excel file. So that is blogs.msdn.com/Visual Studio ALM.